with something awkward.
Yeah. Like that. Yeah, just like that. We're going to start with something awkward. All right, guys, welcome to GuildifyCon's next panel. We are working on crafters crafting crafts, and we're going to call this the Brian Norden Show, Brian Norden and Friends Show. So we have with us Brian Norden, the man, the myth, the legend himself. We have Lars with us as well. Michael Chatfield's here, and Michael Head. I'm gonna have to say their last names over and over again because they booked me with two Michaels at the same time. So that's gonna be fun.
Brian, Ryan, Michael, and Michael. What is the hardest part about this? And Lars.
Thanks, Geneva. This was great.
You forgot Lars.
Lars and Brian, Mike, yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to be talking about crafting as it applies to the books that you guys have been working on and writing. I'm going to go ahead and do two different introductions for you guys. I'm going to do a start and an end, letting you guys plug in your works and what you're excited about to see coming up and what you've got in the pipelines. We'll do it again at the beginning, so the people who come in late, and at the end, so people who come in late will see it. At the beginning, for those who have to leave early. Brian, why don't you start us off with what you have coming out and what you're excited about and what you're working on?
So, I've recently written Quest Academy Silvers, which has been really, really, really fun. I've recently put in Quest Academy Book 2, which has been really, really fun. The edits took a lot longer because I was reading the story and enjoying it, and then I got really pissed off because I got to the end and I was like, what happens next? And realized there was only one person to blame. So yeah, really, really excited for that. In terms of books I am reading at the moment and looking forward to, I guess other than Quest Academy Book 3, which is my own book, I don't know. That's something I'm looking forward to. But other than that, I suppose The Summoner Awakens by Kerberos. It's a deck builder, really, really fun one, and looking forward to getting into book 2 of that. So yeah, that's me.
All right, Lars, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, I totally agree. By the way, Summoner Awakens, I look forward to seeing the next one of that as well. I am finishing the first draft of my last book in the Dragon Core Chronicles these days, and then I will be going heavy into deck building myself, and just had a couple of Magic the Gathering nerds over for a happening to help me build the foundations of my coming series, and I really look forward to diving into that one. And yeah, that's about it. I mean, I was also super happy to see that they somehow revived the new vampire game. I have been looking forward to that for ages, so that's what I'm excited about. How about the Michaels?
Okay, yeah, let's go with Chatfield next.
I'm working on the Four Horsemen series, which is currently out on Royal Road, and it will be continuing on Royal Road. So don't worry, we're not going to be stubbing it and doing all that craziness. It's really fun, party-based, kind of a little bit more grimdark. Sorry, someone is driving past as we speak. It's the best carts. But no, I really am enjoying... I'm actually rereading a series by H.D.A. Roberts. I think it's called The Magician's Brother. Great series, just really, really great characters, and really fun fighting scenes. Like when someone uses smarts to win as well as like overpowering strength is like, I don't know, it's got a great place in my heart. And then Beware of Chicken is like just kind of just a lovely little story to jump into. Well, I guess it's not little really anymore. But yeah, those are my main ones that I'm holding on to right now. But I think I've got like 6 books ones to start, which is great and terrifying, because as soon as you start the book ones, then you're like, and how many books do you have in your series? And then you just start running through and be a bit of a whale reader, which is great. But yeah.
Awesome. And Michael Head, how about you? Finish us off.
So for me, I am trying to get the ending finished up on Wandering Warrior Book 2, which the title of that book is Jury. So that's a trilogy I'm writing, Judge, Jury, and Executioner. And so that way that book can finish up on edits. and we can move that into the publishing process, or move that the rest of the way through the publishing process. And books that I'm excited to read. You're gonna make me look stuff up, man.
Or you could lie.
Or I could lie. Thank you, Brian. Let me see here.
Talk about your publishers. Tell how much you love his stories. They'll buy it.
Yeah, there's like so many things. Yeah, that's right. I'm the invincible Chuck Norris. But no, there's this book called Lore Master. I actually just finished it a little bit, by Emmy Robinson. It's a book one. I just finished it. It was really good. Portal Books put it out recently. It's like a starting from the bottom, work your way up kind of story. It's like a street rat that has to figure out a way to make his way through like a magic academy, very similar to Brian, except for Brian's is a crafter story, which brings us back around to our panel.
Wow. Unbelievably well done.
Yes. Segways
You are a
for the
wordsmith.
win.
Look
All
at
right,
this
guys.
sly guy.
Well, I try.
All right, guys. Well, talking about the crafting of the things that you have in your books, or you put in other stories, or just crafting in general that you love, when it comes to coming up with ideas for crafting, could you guys walk us through a little bit of your process that you go through to make sure that the crafting system works out the way that you want it to? We'll throw it off to Brian first.
Well, it really depends. Like the thing is, what is needs versus, like, when you look at it from a world building perspective, okay, and you see what currently exists within this world, what is the kind of the benchmark, what is the line, and when you look at it from that angle and you see like, oh, okay, crafting supports the people that make the things, they're typically segregated, like almost unintentionally within society, because they're not frontliners, they're not people punching the shit through demons. So like they're obviously going to, take secondary effect to this, and they're not kind of fostered, or they're not kind of like given that element of growth and stuff, so they don't, crafting isn't really at the pinnacle. It's almost like the appraisers or things like that. That's like, hey, look at the shit we got from this portal. Is this good? Is this good? Like they get a lot more kind of screen time than people being like, hey, make me a purpose-built weapon that can like help me punch through demons. So when you look at it from that angle and stuff, and that you see it that, crafting is almost like really expensive with low output. That's how the sort of lens from a societal perspective that I looked at for my own kind of like stories and for Quest Academy. And it was really, really interesting to kind of like see crafting through the eyes of a novice when it comes to crafting, even though the potential is huge. And that allows opening up for so many different kind of avenues of like modularity or evolutionary capabilities, or like, what is something that is actually useful? What is actually useful? A, B, and C, which is I find really, really cool. So that's the sort of stuff that I've explored with Quest Academy, because a lot of the times, rather than it being like, make something really, really cool, it's make something that's really something that can be utilized smart by the right person. So something that could be, even if, and I use the scale of like, common, uncommon, rare, unique, epic, legendary, so on and so forth. But even showcasing that an uncommon would be able to absolutely elevate someone, or something that is rare could elevate someone that has been shit or that doesn't believe in themselves. That could elevate them to some ungodly realm, just on the basis of how it like, changes or utilizes their ability in a completely different way. That's one of the things I love, like how the scope changes. Sorry, I'm rambling. Lots of rum.
That's perfectly fine. Chatfield, why don't I pass that question off to you next? And remember, you're muted.
Gotta unmute myself. So lots of tequila. But no, it is a thing of when you have crafting, it can change your entire story quite a lot. It is hard. Okay, I say it's hard, but maybe it is for some people. But you can go down so many rabbit holes, and it's beautiful rabbit holes. Of like, okay, this is a cool thing. I'm interested in this concept. I've got to learn about it. So like take like the amount of smithing videos I have watched, or the amount of like research into, okay, how do you actually, like, what kind of steel are you using? How do you do iron? How do you do pig iron? That kind of stuff is immense. And then it's matching it with a system which goes, okay, what's a way that we can reflect what happens in the real world, make it fun, and make it so it's not so crazy. Like one thing that I find hard in certain campaigns is crafting, because basically the gear that you get is the gear that you get, and you can't optimize or change anything. And a few optimizations, or like giving someone a tool that they can use really effectively, can change the entire dynamic. But I think it is kind of, crafting comes into a bit of the writing craft, because you have to go, okay, I've got to blend video games and information together in a way that comes out really smooth, and that it's not too much information, because it's really easy to get into, oh, well, you need this amount of carbon to this amount of iron to make steel, and then this kind of treatment to have this kind of effect and that. But yeah, you got to make it fun, you got to make it easy. So it can be a heck of a story in and of itself. Like, we've seen so many stories that are just about crafting, essentially. And then the effects that it has upon the characters, upon the world, can be huge. Yeah, I think crafting as a mechanism in a story opens up a lot more, because it makes the objects you're using a lot more than just, I've gone and found this sword after a bunch of quests. It's, I've done a bunch of quests to get a bunch of rocks, and now I'm going to go make a sword that's my sword, and then I'm going to go beat the heck out of someone with a flat edge. So yeah, like, I think that could be a really fun, like, addition to stories.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Michael. Now, accident-prone Michael, if you'd like to go next.
It's so true.
It is so true. What's the question again?
Just kind of go over your
Harmon.
process for us. Yeah, go over your crafting process for us and what you go through when you're writing that into a story.
Okay, so for me, whenever I'm crafting it into the story, I try to be careful not to get too deep into the weeds, because I don't want to mess up the pacing of the story. Because to me, pacing is extremely important, because if you get too deep into crafting, you can bog down the story. And if you've already set up the story to be fast paced, through action scenes and through the dialogue of your characters, and everything is just going and being really snappy, and now you throw in a crafting scene, you can't get too involved with it, because it's going to create a slow spot, and you're going to lose your readers, because they're used to a certain cadence. And so in my stories, the crafting tends to be a little bit faster, but that doesn't mean that crafting doesn't have a very important place in my stories. And so whether that's an alchemy or blacksmithing or carpentry, whatever it is that yes, Paul did distract me. He was talking about my sexiness, and so I was showing off my collarbones.
Broken and beaten collarbones.
Yeah. I've broken this collarbone twice, but anyway, no. So
today, or
no, not today. But yeah. So whenever you're talking about these, when you're talking about those crafting aspects, like Chatfield was saying, you have to, like, whenever I'm talking about blacksmithing, I'm not going to get into the aspects of, pig iron versus steel, like, and how much carbon is going to be the difference, the amount of carbon I need in each to make that difference. And the benefits of, beaten steel versus Damascus steel versus, like whenever you forge something versus whenever you just do pure molten iron poured into a
Casting.
Thank you, casting. Yeah, a
I
cast.
thought he was talking about smelting. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Get to the point. Come on.
Yes. Yes, exactly. See, it bogs the story down, right? If you
Only if you do it wrong. Sorry.
Thank you, Paul. Yes. But yeah, so when you get into all those minor details, you have to be careful and don't get too focused in on it, and allow your characters to just get through those get through those minor points to get to the finished product, and allow the finished product to tell the story of the crafting as opposed to the process to tell the story. At least for me.
That makes sense. Lars, we'll pass it off to you.
I don't care about pacing. That's a buzzword.
My man.
Yeah. Brian and Lars are like, fuck it. Yeah.
No,
What is
for me?
pacing?
For me, it's all about the flavor of the story, and then the kind of game aspects you want to give it. So, like, my Dragon series is a bit more serious, a bit more gory. So I went with a bit more, tiny bit more serious, realistic approach to the crafting in that. For my World of Change, my Bard series, that was more, well, that didn't take itself too seriously. So I went with the kind of, well, let's just have some fun with these crafting. It's less realistic, a lot more gamey aspects. So I took from a couple of the games that I've played a lot of over the time, and took some of the aspects I love from that, like the Elder Scrolls crafting, where you can take some things, you can choose which skills to imbue, you can choose what aspects you want to put into which items, and then you can break the ever-loving fuck out of that system. That is what I love. So that part, that feeling is what I put into the story there. So basically, I'd say what you want to do with your crafting and how you want to handle it would have to reflect the flavor and the speed of the kind of story that you want to go with. Like, take for instance Nathan, Amy, wherever in the world the bastard may be right now.
Besides
He,
Chatfield in Mexico.
Yeah, he's with Chatfield in Cuba or something exotic like that, and we hate him.
Chatfield.
But he had a more from time to time sedate tempo in his story, with some downtime where they could really get into the crafting, and there they went more into the nitty-gritty of the crafting aspects and made that look loving and tender. Like, they really enjoyed the crafting itself, and it worked there without bogging the story down, because that was kind of the flavor of the book itself. So yeah, take the story, take the flavor you want to go with, then find the kind of realism and the feeling of the crafting you want to throw in there.
I think that's actually, just to add, I think Lars, it kind of hits that one really nail on the head of how crafting thematically connects with your story, because you will have certain themes running through your story, and it's like, I take Judge, right? It's like, okay, well, I need to make things that are very direct to deal with the situation in front of me, because I've had so many situations right in front of me that, like, he's got more forward thinking, but it's like, I need to deal with something now. I need to craft something now. So it's like that makes him more immediacy, but it is also the thing of there's so many things coming at him, and that's kind of a theme in the book of like it's like a blow counter blow kind of situation, which is like the theme you can see throughout that story done in a crafting way.
Yeah, good point.
Makes sense. Makes complete sense. All right, we do have a question coming in from the chat from Sharon that asks, have you ever had to scrap items from your work because they were either too OP or didn't fit into the current novel? Since you went last time, Lars, why don't we start with you?
I actually haven't, because the way I generally approach it is I build the system first, the idea of how I want to do it, and then I just move on with the story. At that point where I have the bare bones of the system, I pants a lot. So that generally ends me up with a lot of crafting items and no clue where the hell I'm going with it. But that's the great part of it, because if you have a game like Morrowind or Oblivion and you have an inventory full of crafting items, you can take the system and you can break the hell out of it. You can make boots of jumping that make you jump a third of the entire game's map with one single jump, stuff like that. So that's where I generally went with it. I knew which items did I have and what could I craft from that. And then I just avoided doing something that, or avoided giving myself the permission to craft something that was entirely insane.
Cool. That sounds great. Sleepy time, Michael. We'll go with you next.
Okay. So I wouldn't say I've ever had to scrap something. I maybe have had to adjust some things, like if I've maybe made something that I felt was too overpowered or something. In the rounds of editing, the very first round of editing is called developmental editing. So maybe my developmental editor will say, "Hey, this has made the world, this is a little too unbalanced." And I'll come back and say, "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm an amazing author and everything I write is perfect." And they'll be like, "No, Michael, you're completely full of shit." And I'll be like, "Okay, thank you for bursting my bubble. I needed that." And then I'll go back through and I'll be like, instead of this belt of holding that can hold 30,000 square feet of things, it can hold 3,000 square feet of things, and so, just knock a zero off and now it's more reasonable. And it's instead, like 3,000 square feet. Oh, that's the size of roughly a house, a good size house. That's a good size. We can roll with that. That we'll stick with that. That works. And so, that's what developmental editing is for, and that's why, in my opinion, it's the most important round of editing.
I can hear you cursing out the developmental editor in your head, though.
Yes, JD, you're absolutely right.
All right, Major BJ, we'll pass it to you next.
So the question was, have I ever put in anything too OP that made me regret it or want to remove it? Is it?
Yeah, or is there a time that you came across an item that you just went, "This is just complete shit. I need to scrap it and do something different"?
The answer is no. That
Asshole.
hasn't happened. No, honestly, I'm book one. So, I'm book one, so I won't come into this limitation yet or anything like that. So the answer is no. To expand on it just a little bit, is that everything has a purpose. And when you look at the scale of events or things, that if you made something incredible for an individual, the societal threat is a world at war. What is one person with one item going to do in that entirety? So the perspective of what is overpowered versus this, and adding things that have caveats is one of the most integral things. Like, for example, in Quest Academy Book 1, Sal, main character, witnesses one of the lecturers called Sinclair, came up with that name out of the blue, turns into a demon and literally is mauling students, you know, that think that they could fight demons. So he shows them, well, look, I'll just imitate what a demon is, and let's see how you do, and absolutely fucking wrecks them. And that traumatic episode makes Sal going like, I'm going to make a defense mechanism against these. And he designs a shirt from Fear, being like, this will protect me against them. And it's an incredible shirt. But the limitation of it is that he doesn't have enough internal essence to be able to fuel this thing. And it knocks him the fuck unconscious. And because he doesn't understand crafting. So I love to have drawbacks to things. There's always going to be limiting factors or prerequisites or limiting things. And that there's no such thing as infallibility when you're a crafter, because you will make mistakes. And I love the fact that you can, within crafting, it's like, oh, our back is against the wall and we need you to come up with something amazing. And it's like, okay. And it fucks up, because that's the real world. That's how these things happen. Sometimes it works out and amazing, but if it doesn't, that's also the real world. But yeah, the answer is no.
I feel like that should be on the real explanation for military issue anything. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, military issue, it's great, and it's like, no, it fucks up all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anytime you hear military grade, if you were ever in the military, you're like, ooh.
Where's the duct tape?
Comes with a warning sign: may or may not be real object.
Yes. Budget unlimited.
Budget cut right at the end before we test it. All right, Chatfield, you go. How about we finish up with you on
So, okay, I guess I use like a couple of paradigms to like qualify if it's overpowered or not. If the character is capable of creating it and it makes sense for them to do so, it'll pass. I'll use case in point in Emerillia. I was like, well, if you could create portals everywhere and understand portals, you would just like drop something, and 9.8 meters per second squared is like gravitational pull on Earth. If you found someone that had a higher gravitational pull, that's great. But using even that constant and then just dropping a rock through portals and then just looping those portals together would make it get really fast, really quick. And then if you switch one of those portals to point at something, then it would go really fast, really quick at something. And yeah, that's how like people were like, so it doesn't really have cannons on the ship or rail guns. They just open portals, and it is essentially a space battle, but we're just hurling rocks at you like freaking cavemen through portals. So yeah, portal magic can really screw you up. That plus gravity is a bad time. But no, it is also like they're understanding their ability to do it, because sometimes you'll be going through gear and it's just like, this doesn't make sense for them. Like you're like, this would be awesome, and you have to put it to a point later on, because you could see the threads of them thinking about it in their perspective, but you're like, they just don't have the knowledge now or something like that. So I've certainly had ideas that I'm like, that's really cool. That's a really good possibility, but this character wouldn't work with that. The character wouldn't think of this. It's because I brought another perspective in, and that's kind of changed it. And then the output's different. But yeah, no, you can come up with some crazy ideas. And I think that's the most fun, because, crafting, crafting I did in the 10 Realms, there was a lot of it, and every single time when I was doing crafting with the characters. So you're stuck, and I think we all do this, of like, you're with the characters as they're making something, and you're like, well, they have this, and you're like, okay, they can do 2 enchantments. Okay, what 2 enchantments would I do? Okay, well, I would think this because that has this effect, and then I would think I would do this. But wait a minute, wasn't there another enchantment that is possible to lay on this that would have this effect? And you're like, oh, that's really cool. And then you like, your mind process goes through, and if you write that out, like people will be like, that's great, because they can see how the character is actually developing that kind of item. And I think that's like kind of crafting gold, because you get so excited. You're like, oh, we started off with, simple defenses. And then you go, well, I could layer it into this. I could link it into this. I could do it this. And it's going down those rabbit holes. And I think Brian's example of when Sal's in fear mode is when someone's in fear mode, they spiral. But if they spiral and they have an objective in mind, they can actually grab the things as they're going and then really develop something quite big at the end of it. And then it might be, usually it's a bad idea that's continued, and that's never good. But in this, it's I've got an idea which I think is productive, and then I've just kept on doing it until I've basically killed it, kind of thing. But yeah, no, it can be really fun. But I think there's always a space for those things you can craft. And if you can't use it in a story, you can always use it to really piss off your next DM. Because they'll just be like, what are you doing on your weekends? And you're like, I did it in my weekday. And it's just beautiful.
To be entirely honest, that right there, the idea of following the thought processes of the main character, that is 95% of the allure of Lit RPG to begin with. That's distilled to the fucking core, and taking crafting and following the thought process of crafting. That to me is the essence of what makes Lit RPG crafting fucking amazing.
I agree.
Yep, I think we all agree with that for sure. So in talking about crafting, I don't think it's possible for us to discuss this and talking about processes and scrapping things without going into the amount of research that you guys do. And how far do you feel like you need to go down the rabbit hole when we're talking about research with these things? Is there ever such thing as too much research? And then how much research do you normally do when looking at crafting these items? Chatfield, let's start with you.
Look at Brian's face.
Yeah. Oh, I'm waiting for this one to hit someone. But so I usually go pretty far into the crafting. I go a lot into the weeds, to be truthful, because the thing is that if the character is to know it, I'm using aids, right? So I can go and research stuff and bring it up. But there's now it's reached a point of the characters have known so much stuff that you retain that knowledge that you go, okay, I know that I'm at this point. So they've advanced probably to this point. How much you have to in a research study make up to that point. The research can be really intense. Wikipedia is awesome now, but there's also so many people that have really cool information. I just go to YouTube a lot. Thanks, Harman. To actually see the effect. I had a scene with cannons, and it's I was like, okay, well, people are getting attacked by cannons. Is it different from getting hit with artillery because the projectile is moving slower, but it's not it's on a parabolic arc, yes, but it's not usually as arcing. It's not such a high degree. And so it was okay, what does it sound like when that's coming at you? And thankfully, someone had a battery of cannons firing at a tank, and so I was hearing it, and it's the smoke is up, but you hear the smoke is about 5 feet up, and then you hear it hit, and it's when it hits ground, but then it does that whiz ricochet, and it does that at the same time that you hear the shot. So it's traveling just above the speed of sound. So you actually have to make sure speed of sound and the projectile are hitting at the same time. So you hear the cannon shot and the round hitting near the exact moment. And yeah, that's you can go deep into that hole, as I have just right there. But it's really fun because then you can go to the people who are interested in that and have forged themselves, have done that crafting themselves. They really connect to it because they're you actually took the time to pay homage to what we're doing. So yeah.
Definitely very cool. Lars, I may have you go next so we can give Brian a minute to Google the word research.
No, I'm with Brian.
REQ. Damn it.
Research is for suckers. Seriously. No, not at all. My research in general, especially on World of Change, which was a lot more gamified and in a VR MMO aspect, a lot less physics heavy. That's not what you'd call real research. It was more a case of I need to spend a shitload of time thinking about which games would actually fit this kind of crafting I want to build, which system do I need to build here. So yeah, I've spent a shitload of time playing a ton of different crafting games, but there was not as much real need for research in that situation, because of course, what the hell do I care about the law of physics if it's a VR MMO and I can just say, hey, it's a game. In the Dragon Core Chronicles, I had to go pretty deep down the rabbit hole when it came to physics and earth and rock manipulation, because the major magic and crafting used there is mining and earth magic. So yeah, but generally I actually like the light on realism crafting.
Excellent.
Brian,
Yep.
are you up for it?
Did you
of
read
course.
up the definition?
So here's the thing. I am from Ireland, and we are typically known as a neutral country. I was in the Army Reserves for 6 years, and I have used a range of infantry weaponry. And I know that in America, guns are a little bit more prevalent than in Ireland. And I was writing about guns. And I thought to myself, fuck, I need to figure this shit out, because I never want to fall into the clip and mag, stupidity. Jesus Christ, why are you like this? Sorry. I literally, like, Ryan, when I was writing this, I was like, God, I need to talk to people. And I was like, Ryan's just a nice guy. He probably won't have the answer. And I did not realize that Ryan is a Texan. And every answer I needed came from Ryan. And I was like, Ryan is like my tech bro friend. There's no chance in hell that he's going to have my gun answers. And he did. And then there was a time where I was like, they're only recently doing my edits. And I was like, the spiraling on a barrel of a gun, that makes the round rotate, right? And then they're like, Brian, that's called rifling. And I'm like, cool. Yeah, I just needed a yes. That's all. Thank you. The other thing that I regret is putting in a metric on the stat appraisal sheets called dimensions. Because anytime I put in something like an earpiece or like a necklace or something like that, I need to know the fucking dimensions. And Ireland uses a different fucking measurement system than America, which is 90% of my reader base. So everything I know is wrong. And that was fun. So research is usually me grumbling and just being like, fucking America.
To be entirely true, calling a Texan is also a method of research I've used. It's awesome.
I just pinged in a group chat. I'm super efficient. It's really nice. It's like, please come back to me when you can. But yeah, so I research all the time. I'm really, really happy with how all that went. Next person, please.
Michael Head.
So for a lot of stuff, I grew up. I spent a lot of time growing up on a farm, so a lot of things. Yeah, Paul.
Sorry, you took a lot of time growing up. Sorry.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time growing up on a farm. So whenever you do that, you have to.
So for sex scenes, you needed to look up things, right?
Who has kids? Who has kids? Anyway.
That doesn't mean anything, Michael,
Yeah.
and you know it.
Those are free in the States. I've seen they're everywhere, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you have to make a lot of things because you don't have the money to go out and buy them. So even when I was very young, we made a lot of our own stuff. So like cardboard, baling wire, and duct tape, like that's a crafter's paradise. You know what I mean? Like that's that'll fix a tractor in a heartbeat. Like we
Look at the people nodding as you talk, and the people looking at being like, What are you?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Paul. But yeah, so I just kind of tap into what I know. Whenever I was
Are we
deployed,
still talking about making kids?
yes.
It's called crafting.
Car-
It just takes 9 months.
Yeah, making kids, cardboard, baling wire, and duct tape. For those of you who are taking notes.
No,
Yes,
I
yes.
thought about tapping into what he knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you get on a watch list, Lars. Sorry.
Also true. Also requires baling wire. No.
Found this man stuck to a sign. Questionable.
No. Whenever I was deployed, we used to have a thing called
Crafting.
Yes.
Is that what the kids are calling it nowadays, Brian? Is that-
Yeah.
No. Once he starts with a deployment thing, we're going to hear about how he nearly died one time.
No.
So-
This applies.
Okay.
We used to have a thing called crafting time with Sergeant Head, and and so, well, a lot of times, if you lose something or something breaks, you can't go and just buy it. Like there's no stores to buy things. So, like if your weapon sling breaks, you have to make one. So we would use 550 cord or parachute cord to like make weapon slings, and I knew how to do that. Like there's a certain way that you can layer and braid 550 cord to make a weapon sling that's actually comfortable and won't cut into your shoulder. And I knew how to do that. So I would teach soldiers how to do that, or like make a wallet out of duct tape. I would show people how to do that, like all kinds of I did. Yeah. And like teach people how to fight old women in Walmart on Black Friday. Like Paul was talking about, like you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
guys heard it here first. Your taxpayer dollars at work for the U.S. military. Crafting time with Sergeant Head.
Yes, it's true.
Our school systems are doomed.
Yes. So Sharon, I actually was a sergeant in the Army. Brian was not actually a major.
Wow. I was a major something,
Not
but
that.
I was not a major.
I like how she qualified. Like, one of you sounds professional, and one of you sounds like you were painted on the nose plane of an aircraft.
Yeah.
I just
Personally,
wonder the posture.
I know, but see, if I had ever gone officer, then I could have been like Captain Head, Major Head, General Head. That's like superhero names.
Next
But in
question,
all-
Ryan.
We'll go with that. Mike.
Please, next question.
All right. Question in from Kyle. What crafting area has not been utilized in this genre, and what would you like to see built up more often? So is there a specific type of crafting you don't think there's a lot of? I mean, we see everything from smithing to gunsmithing in Brian's case. We have, is there like, do we need underwater basket weaving to come up more in Lit RPG? Or what kind of things would you like to see more of in crafting in Lit RPG? Brian?
Do you mind if I hop in? So, on this, I would never presume to be knowledgeable on all the stories that are out there. And I imagine that there are so many out there that have covered all of the things that I could possibly name. But what I will say is that from a reader standpoint, one of the reasons that I made Quest Academy so crafting focused is that in the vast majority of stories that you will read, crafting will always be secondary, third, or fourth down the list of priorities. It is essentially a means to an end. It's like, how do I get from this point to this point? Oh, I crafted the thing, I did the thing, it's amazing. Or I killed a giant boss and I got the thing that I was able to smelt and make into the blah, and whatever. I much more prefer to have crafting as an integral part of the storyline. And that means the tribulations and the failures as well that comes along with that. And the learning processes, and that kind of grips you into, thinking that it's going to be more. And this, it ties into Timothy McGowan's question from earlier of how do you make crafting an actual interesting part of the plot. And I personally think is that if you make it integral to the plot, if you make a part of your character's identity, the vast majority of, like, for example, like anyone that's amazing at crafting in stories these days has something else that makes them like punch through fucking walls or demons and things like that, or they have an incredible fighting or martial capability. What if you only have a crafter? You know, and again, no, Quest Academy doesn't even fall into that category 100%. But the thing is, the ethos and the mindset is that fucking harem. It's like, you know, you talk to a woman and be like, oh, they want to bang. Sorry, no, I'm not talking about you, JD, but like it boils my piss. Anyway, it's but the thing is, like, honestly, I think that having crafting as a key component and a central instrument for the character progression and growth, and having a lot of it, you know, as our like limitations and things, it opens so much for you. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And what are other people doing? I would love to see a lot more crafting focus, but I think a lot of people see it as maybe a stopgap. And you see in some stories that start off as a crafting story, they craft an amazing weapon, and then they go off and use the weapon, and they're a fighter or they're a spell sword. And you're like, that's cool. I came here for crafting, not for that. So that's something I want to keep integral to the plot going forward, just for Quest Academy anyway. But again, and not to belittle any other story, just for my own key preferences.
Well, it's definitely a good point to make. You don't want to set a precedent for something that somebody would want to come read for, and then it was just a passing plot point by the end of the book that you
bait
got
and
to.
switch. You don't want to bait and switch them, being like, oh, here, have this, and it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. Lars, how about you? Something you wanted to see more of in the crafting?
Well, I don't like this because Brian just had an excellent point, and I think we should end the panel because that just breaks everything.
I'm going to the bathroom. You have time, Lars?
Oh, thank you.
Just you know.
No, seriously, I completely agree. And what I would love to see more of has been included in pretty much any book out there, including some of mine. But I would love to see an entire book or series based around the craft of trap making. I mean, just having it entirely integral, like one person or family or whatever, just holding up, defending themselves simply by trap laying throughout an entire series. There would be a level of what would you call it? Like a need to think on your feet in order to create a system that's elaborate and interesting enough. And I think you could get to some depths there that would be just amazing to follow.
Yeah, that would definitely be cool. That's actually a really, really great idea. I would read that book for sure. Chatfield?
Okay, so the trap making actually made me think of something that I think is really cool, is golem making. I think, well, like, though it has been touched with Mark of the Fool, to be honest. So like they've got golem making in there, which is great. But I think there's just like, you know, like I think like a grim dark where it's like, hey, we've got magic, but we're gonna like have golems or be entombed in golems would be freaking cool. But okay, so this is an interesting one, and it sounds weird because, you know, I've done, like, alchemy is great, but I think chemistry could be a really interesting one, like using chemical bonds of, and I think this would actually probably delve into magic as well as crafting, of like using different kinds of chemicals together to react to like have effects. So it's, someone could have like a really weak power, but they just go, okay, well, I get a weak power, but I know that you use fire, so I'm just going to increase the amount of oxygen around you. So it like overpowers your attacks so much that you like blow up. Or it's, hey, I can make really great steel because of the chemical understanding of this, or like making drugs that would chemically like affect someone else. So like that could be really cool. That would be really difficult and it would take someone who has a really good understanding of chemistry, but it's something that we haven't really delved into. A lot of the material objects I think we've delved into, or we've kind of, roughshod it together, but that could be really interesting because like it also kind of goes into flesh magic of, like bonds between cells and that kind of thing, which would be kind of cool. But yeah, no, that would be interesting. That said, the caveat is, and I think this is why it's hard to do, is a story with that in it would be a hard one to write because, like, it's chemistry is not the most interesting thing that we've dealt with, but it can be very interesting. And it like making those two things connect that's the job of the author to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, you'd be guaranteed like 4 1-star reviews from teachers and chemists.
Oh, no matter what. No matter what.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
My sister has a PhD in chemistry, and I could totally ask her for help, but I'd much rather get it wrong and have her be pissed off with me.
Yeah, don't worry, Michael, or don't worry, Brian. I'm there for you.
Thank you.
All right, Michael Head, we'll pass it off to you.
So there's 2 that I think that are what would be cool to do. One of them has very recently people have been started doing, and that's brewing. Like making beer, alcohol, that kind of stuff. For as a way of crafting, there's very, very recently been some books that have come out that have done that, and I think that's awesome because I feel like that's been something that humans have been doing for millennia, and that's something that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, like Bronzewank Brewer. I've been reading that one right now, and I'm very much enjoying that by James
Yes.
Gould. It's very good.
Wait, hold on. What's Jay talking about? Was it what? Am I the wrong Michael that started talking?
Ignore Jay. You're on the panel. Go, go, go.
Okay, all right.
No offense, Jay.
Yeah,
But ignore Jay, Michael. Keep going.
Yes, and then the other one would be runesmithing or calligraphy. I feel like that runesmithing and calligraphy kind of is really underrepresented as far as being the main focus of a story. Like if you were to have a character that was physically weak or physically underpowered, but if he could make clothing or armor that if he were to have knowledge of runes and calligraphy or some type of calligraphy that could turn him into some type of physical beast, that would be a really cool thing to do.
Arcane Ascension kind of goes that way, doesn't it? Andrew Rowe.
I don't think I've read that one.
It's awesome. Really.
I will have to read that one.
Yeah.
Ryan, we already did the introductions. Can we take another question? I'm really enjoying the questions.
We can do that if we want
They
to.
all know what we write. If they want to know what we write and stuff, then go to the start.
It's just because you've said something clever already.
What?
Okay, then I'll ask this one to hopefully embarrass Brian even more. Phil asked, how much of your talents and capabilities on crafting actually make it into the books? Like if you're better at carpentry, do they tend to focus on that? Brian, how about we start with you?
All of them. I'm actually fucking incredible. I definitely don't have a degree in marketing, and I definitely literally had a hard life. Like these calloused hands, don't look at them closely. I definitely went out to the manufacturing plant and made things. Like, here's the thing, okay? So like I write stories. Okay.
Brian just makes sandwiches. That's if you had a crafting
And I
sandwich.
fucking eat them. Eat them. That's the other part
You
of that
should
problem.
hear him talk about a brioche bun.
Oh, you don't understand.
Oh, it's so true.
But Phil, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to tell you this, but I am a sham. I'm a fraud. I just have wishful thinking that I write really, really moderately well. So I realized I was getting arrogant by saying really, really well. But like honestly, having a fucking clue. I just try my best. I think of what would be cool, and then put that in the pacing of a story and with certain beats, and being like, that would be super cool. But then you break it down logically of like, how would you go about this? So some of the components I had are like the technology we have today, are like 3D printing and stuff like that, or having it like, or just like being able to channel things. There are obviously hand wavium elements in there, but when I'm breaking down certain things, like I had to recall stuff from when I was 18 years of age, when I was disassembling rifles, and I was like, okay, this is what we're doing. As in, like, is it going to operate without a firing pin? No. What happens if you don't oil it? Nothing. That's what happens. Like, as in, there's a lot of things like that that I can draw from personal experience, but personally, no, I am not a craftsman, and I am not capable in that way. But I do research those people because I find it really interesting.
All right, why don't we pass it off to Crafting with Sergeant Head.
So yeah, I kind of already answered that. I do use a little bit of my own background knowledge. Obviously not for alchemy, because that's not a thing in real life. But
That's not true.
It absolutely fucking is a real thing.
Yeah, it's totally a real thing. I made gold
It's
last
called chemistry.
Okay, now you've gone too
Absolute
far,
horror.
Brian.
yeah,
Oh.
yes. Well, I don't use my
Literally calling my fucking sister. Okay.
yeah. I don't use my linwood seed in my my mana to force it into my cauldron to make mana pills, But anyway,
The motor and
actually-
pestle. That's how they fucking started.
Do you know what books I use for research for that? This guy's
Karma Sutra.
this guy's books right over here. I read a
Have
lot
you?
of chat. Like I reread the 10 Realms.
You're the
'Cause
first
he does
person that has
such a good
admitted to
job.
reading his books.
Yeah, he does such a good job.
Which
But
one?
yeah.
He's written like 40.
The 10 Realms, specifically
Okay,
the 10
gotcha.
Realms.
12 books and 10 realms. Always confused me. Continue.
But yeah, for a lot of like the blacksmithing stuff and the if there's any type of carpentry or anything like that, and anything having to do with firearms or anything like that, I tend to I can use a lot of my own background knowledge for that stuff.
I love Paul.
All right,
Never thought I'd say that sentence.
Sheffield, let's move over to you. Well, we got 3 minutes left, they say. So
I'll be quick. I think that the thing when I'm doing crafting, I usually go, what's the item I want to make? And then how would I go about doing that? I think like I put stuff back together, and I've like my dad loves mechanics, so he like tears apart cars all the time, doesn't put them back very often, which is kind of a pain in the ass because now we've just got fucking junkers everywhere, which is annoying.
do you always
especially
end up
for,
with
like,
extra pieces? I always end up with extra pieces. I don't know where.
yeah, you're just like, no, we don't have any extra nuts. Like that's not a thing. Yeah. Why is that rattling? But but it is like I usually go for, okay, what do I want to create? So how do I get there? And that's like usually like I do that in like real world as well. Like, okay, this thing's broken. How do I fix it? And then I go look up the information to make that happen. And that's kind of how I follow it. I definitely think that like it is, some of the solutions, they have similar options, and especially if a character has, okay, they have this information, you'll see it, especially in 10 Realms, of like they'll talk to other crafters and be like, I can make this component, you can make this component. Together, these things are much stronger. Like the theme in 10 Realms is together we can make something so much better than apart. So it is a thing of, at the beginning, it's one character's making all the guns, and by the end of it, everyone's making a differentiated system upon the original system they have, which is turned into like this. We have standardized things, and now we can do so much more. So yeah, not so much like I would go like, okay, like I have a specific area that I like working in, like I know woodworking, but it's more kind of like, I guess, fantasy gazing, as Brian was saying, because it's beyond what I could do. But yeah, Lois?
Well, basically, we are 3 kids in the family. My dad tried to teach us all everything. He's built like 4 houses by himself, heating, electricity, plumbing, everything. My kid brother's an engineer. My elder sister, she does everything she can with mopeds, and what do I know? I build sandwiches. I'm with Brian here. No talent whatsoever. We are shams. We are talentless. That's it.
Well,
Wow.
Chatfield had
Especially
a hard
Brian.
stop.
And
We
Brian,
lost Chatfield.
yeah, we lost Chatfield.
Oh,
Well, we have reached the 2:00 mark. Since we can usually go over by a minute or two, I'm going to give you guys just one more chance to throw your things out there. Brian, start with you.
Quest Academy, please buy it. I really appreciate you. It's lovely. That's me.
Yep.
Michael?
Yeah. Oh, he's back. Threads of Fate and Wandering Warrior. Buy
Yeah,
those,
sorry.
please. Thank you. Appreciate you. Love your face.
All right, Lars?
Go buy Underdog. I like to eat. Please.
That's
the
not
old
the tagline of
cartoon.
Underdog.
Yeah, like the... And Chatfield, if you want to give one more big plug before we're headed out. Actually, make it a small plug, please.
Chatfield, unmute. Tell us what you fucking write. Oh, Jesus Christ. Literally just a pretty face. That's all you are.
He's trying to unmute. I can see his finger trying to unmute.
Please tell us about all
So
your
connection
talents
unknown,
again,
if you
Michael.
could buy that from him.
There he
that'd be great.
goes. There he goes.
Yeah, sorry. I pressed a button, as you can see. Don't press the red button. I accidentally hit it on the corner of my thing, and then I just run back in. Sorry about that, Lars. Did you?
Buy connection.
No, we're
unknown
now
and
on
10
you, and
rounds.
it's
Buy
fucking
connection
stuff real quick.
unknown, buy 10 rounds, buy Amarelia, buy fucking the skeleton one. Like, what do we buy from Chatfield?
6. What?
Those sound great. It's time for the awkward wave, guys. Unfortunately, we're gonna
Literally,
get the 3
Chatfield,
seconds
literally
awkward
in the
wave.
few final seconds, tell them what to buy.
Yes, goodbye.
Were you asking about all the books?
Yeah.
We just
You
said
are
every book you've
shit
ever
at
written.
this. How are you a multi-million bestseller?
Buy
Literally.
Chatfield stuff.
Do Judge and Jury, do Dragon, do all the Quest Academy books, do Vending?
Your books, you
You're
dumbass.
doing it
Oh,
wrong.
Jesus Christ!
You're doing it
Just
wrong.
go ride the Four Horsemen. It'll be coming out soon. We'll do that.
This is the
Fine.
best ending ever.
There we
Yes.
go. Jesus Christ.